Damn! Just look at that epic amount of space! So much to discover and explore, and I can't even imagine how many monsters there will be to kill! What? Oh, it's a skeleton! Oh, here we go! Let's do this! Oh, I can't imagine how tough this is gonna be. This is gonna be so epic! This is gonna be so... It's good to see you again. Welcome to the weekend. This is Shep from Gaming Introspection. If you find some entertainment value on the game we're about to analyze today, please like and subscribe below. Today, we are immersing our nostalgia in one of the most anticipated landmark games in our history, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Link's first N64 adventure had the unenviable task of taking the massive overworld, top-down dungeons, and eccentric characters of the original 2D games, particularly the original Legend of Zelda and its Super NES sequel, Link to the Past, and ushering all of it into a new 3D realm. To say that it succeeded is a gross understatement, and we will definitely reflect on the strengths that continue to make this game timeless. But nostalgia often blinds us to things that really weren't that great, even at the time of its release. Having said that, let's delve deep into the hits and misses of Ocarina of Time. Now, back in the day, we were used to a level being mostly a 2D hallway, or at the most ambitious, a top-down 3/4 view field. Mario 64 gave us an eye-opener with its 3D worlds a couple of years earlier, but if you climb up to a high vantage point, you can still easily see the world in its entirety. However, this feeling, when Link leaves the Kokairi Forest for the first time in his 10 years, and steps out wide-eyed into the open plains, we, as players, are just as astounded as he is. Never before had a video game given players such a concrete spectacle of space and vastness. You can go anywhere, but you don't even know where anywhere is because you can't even see far enough to hazard a guess at what lurks in store. Even if you go to your trusty map screen, of course it's shrouded in clouds, which is a nice homage to the Link to the Past actually. And it makes sense, because Link hasn't seen anything outside of his forest, and neither have you. It takes actual exploration to sift through the clouds and bask in the glory of Hyrule's varied landscape. This, right here, is what it means to be an adventure game. Even though it's 23 years old, it still takes a while to do a lap around the field. As young Link running the whole time, you'll spend a lot of minutes to get from Kokairi Forest's boundary all the way around and back again. For this era, the time that takes was unfathomable. So this is a short hit to explain, and it's one that's probably going to be very underwhelming if you're a younger gamer. I mean, let's take a look at a contemporary game like Red Dead Redemption 2. You can literally see for miles in that game. Ocarina of Time's Hyrule Field would take up less than 1% of this game's map, and to be sure, the size and scope of games has become one of the biggest advancements in modern gaming. So you would have had to have been there in 1998 to really get this one, but it doesn't really need much extra explanation. And those who are around my age can scratch their white beards and nod sagely at this hit. This was a big deal at the time. 3D was still very new. Most games of this kind had you frantically running around and flailing your swords or guns in sporadic directions, making both you and the game character look like a drunken idiot. But Nintendo, in their prime at least, were a huge innovator of systems and game mechanics that we really take for granted now, and this was one of them. Named after the bottom trigger, tapping Z would lock Link's focus and the camera behind him, allowing the player to focus in on the enemy at all times. The controls would shift so that you could advance, retreat by sidestepping or backflipping, or jab and thrust your sword when the moment was right, all while not having to worry about the camera or losing attention on the enemy. Instead of this, you had this! Z-targeting definitely succeeded, both at making every battle an engaging, intense moment, as well as pinpointing your movement in an otherwise free-for-all of 3D space. But it wasn't perfect. The biggest flaw of this system was that once you've targeted your enemy and became engaged in combat, that enemy is the only one who would ever challenge you. This makes what should be an epic sword fight full of parrying and dodges over two different swords into an entirely unrealistic one-on-one duel, with any extra enemies simply swarming around you on the exterior, doing nothing. This is especially disappointing and unrealistic during actual tough opponents, like when battling two lizard foes or Stalfos. Because really, if you were them, would you just casually be watching from the sidelines? Observe the Stalfos here. He's in a prime spot to just stab Link through the back. Don't tell me this undead skeleton dude has some kind of honor code. Look! He's literally standing there, sword drawn, not doing anything. The irony is, if you turn off Z-targeting and just start running and slashing like a madman, both enemies' AIs kick in and they'll fight back. So it really is unfortunate that such a good system handicaps the difficulty the way it does. Take this wolf fight for an extra example. Look at how badly I'm getting my ass kicked if I fight without Z-targeting activated. I'm getting mauled and slashed by this rabian-infested wolf family. Oh, god damn! Stop it! But as soon as I turn Z-targeting on, they just enter a circle the outside mode and do absolutely nothing except make obnoxious howling noises. Brutal. Puzzles have always been integral to any Legend of Zelda game. Ocarina of Time may not have the most difficult brain-busting puzzles in the series, but in my opinion, it has a really great blend of thought-provoking tasks. It challenges your character knowledge, it makes you pay attention to environmental cues, and it accesses your common sense in a way that makes it feel really rewarding when you finally figure that puzzle out for yourself. Let's take a look at some examples. Some of my favorites are the ones that aren't even required to complete the game. In Lon Lon Ranch, if you explore the farm, you'll find this unremarkable building that looks equally nondescript if you go inside. Looks just like a storage shed for cattle and some supply crates. But if you investigate it, you realize you can push the crates around, and if you're curious enough, you move them enough that you find this small crawl space that leads you to a heart piece. In the Lost Woods, Mido stands guard over the Forest Temple entrance, and seeing as how Link's grown up while the Kokiri never do, he views Link as an outsider and rejects him entry. My favorite thing about the riddles, which this one here exemplifies perfectly, is that the game never, not once, tells you explicitly what to do. You have to make the connection that Saria is the Forest Sage, who Mito is very protective over, and that if you play Saria's song, who she only taught to her friends, you can prove to him that you're there for the right reasons. Some puzzles give you clear environmental cues, like this ice-covered eyeball that's on the wall. This is before you have any fire arrows, so you can't just shoot it. You see the rotating platform surrounding the torch, and you figure out that you need to get on the platform, wait until it rotates you around so that your aim lines up with the torch, shoot your arrow through the flames, into the ice, and bam! It melts and triggers a switch. This one isn't a challenging example, but you gotta admit the design is friggin' sweet. In Lon Lon Ranch, Ingo challenges you to a race, and if you use the standard horse, you have no chance. Even if you know the strategy for conserving your speed boosting carrots, you'll get dusted. You have to have made a bond with Epona as a child, and remember to play the song to summon Epona, who is by far the best horse to Link, so you can kick Ingo's ass and then do it twice. I especially like how the game follows this up with a puzzle that the practice session prepares you for. Epona's an amazing jumper, so you're already smirking when Igor tries to get the last word in by closing the main gate in front of you. You get up some speed and leap over the gate, escaping with your trusty new steed, and finally getting away to travel around Hyrule Field faster. Sometimes the game simply rewards players who learn the finer ways to use all the abilities your items have. When you make your way to the Spirit Temple, you realize that your hookshot can cling onto and pull you towards any objects that are wooden, like here when you have to use it to cross some quicksand by latching onto a crate. If you keep that theory with you when you enter the temple, you can use it to help you in this room. It's a very convoluted and intimidating climb, with spikes and spiders littered all over the place, and you can spend a lot of time and a lot of swear words here. Or you can just remember how useful and long your long shot is, and boom! You're done in 2 seconds. Even the combat has some brain teasers mixed into it, like how you need to absorb 3 consecutive spells of the witch's magic before you have enough power to turn it back against them. The mirror shield is kick-ass, and its reflective qualities also come into play with some environmental puzzles where you have to manipulate beams of light in order to access the boss chamber, which you then need to remember to use your hookshot ability to get to, bringing that common sense element back again. It's super subtle, amazingly smart puzzle design that always brings a smile to my face whenever I revisit this game. From the moment you turned into adult Link and trudged across the barren wasteland of the Hyrule Castle town, you could venture to Ganon's castle and get so close to it, but you were never able to make it across. The build up to the end of this gargantuan game is so incredible. You've got the 7 sages creating the Rainbow Bridge to give you access to the castle. And this was such a thrilling, rewarding moment because you'd spent 30 plus hours of gameplay to get here, and you finally are able to make it over that chasm with the help of the most cherished people in Link's life. The castle itself is a crazy hodgepodge of individual trials that have no rhyme or reason and make you rethink everything you've done so far in the dungeons leading up. You're tasked with destroying 6 elemental barriers with your shiny new light arrows. And to do this, you're finding silver rupees over top of lava, sending bomb chews through spiderweb mazes, or trying to. Oh my god! Hit the thing! Make it go ping! What the bloody hell? Oh, finally! Jesus. You also need to use a plethora of items and puzzle solving that are based on objects and themes you've seen before, like the blue fire and ice block puzzles, as well as the lens of truth, and casually chucking stone pillars over your shoulder. Then there's a battle gauntlet, where you're facing off against all of the staple enemies one after the other. You finally make it to the end of this endurance run, and you hear this organ playing. You slowly ascend the staircase, And by the way, look at how long this staircase is! Is this Ganon's master plan? The final trial for Link is the unrelenting stairway! His quads will be screaming out in agony! It reminds me of Final Fantasy VII, where Barret has to stop and rest during their 50-floor sprint up the Shinra building. The organ gets louder and louder until finally you enter, and there it is. The united Triforce bearers all together in one room. Provided you're victorious against Ganon's first form, which is a callback to the Forest Temple Doppelganger boss, you see a rare spurt of blood from him, and it sounds like he's gasping his last breath, giving Link's deeds a kind of badassery that you never would have expected in a Nintendo game. And I have to pause here for a bit. My older gamers on the N64, you'll remember, prove me right in the comments, his blood was red in the original version. And it was so crazy to see that in a Nintendo published game. It still pisses me off royally to this day that they caved to the rating system and changed it to green in subsequent releases. Fire some comments off, please, if you agree with this cheap, watered-down green blood, because it ruined one of the most badass hero moments of Nintendo's history. Anyway, it's such an arduous fight that you think you've won. I mean, after all, the windows shatter into rupees, and his body just kind of falls down, dead, lifeless. So, you've won. Except, you haven't! You're then tasked with protecting Zelda as you frantically escape the collapsing castle, damaging debris falling from the ceiling, dashing, desperately flailing your sword as you make your way through a time trial of hell, fighting enemies you've killed many times before, but making mistakes because you've never been under this much stress. It's a stroke of genius pitting Link against a zombie enemy right before you find the end. If you've had trouble up to this point, these frozen seconds are absolutely panic-inducing. But eventually, you prevail, and then you think it's finally over, but it isn't. The Triforce of Power resonates, and you see Ganondorf transform. And this is the moment that makes the shivers flow. Let me explain. Every other boss throughout the entire 40-hour game has had some text below it that describes what it is or who it is, as if it needs extra descriptions to make each boss seem important. But this time, it's simply Ganon. It's the most telltale sign of finality that this is the last boss, and it all comes down to this fight. The Master Sword is slashed away from you, and you feel as though you're utterly defenseless as the lightning strikes, the flames rise, and the most foreboding, heart-racing battle music swells around this tiny isle that used to hold up Ganon's lair. The atmosphere here was unlike anything any game had ever established. And even today, even if you're a younger gamer, you'll appreciate the intensity of the visuals and the music. You're somersaulting between his legs, using hook shots and light arrows, getting him to destroy the scenery, give you supplies, anything you can think of to try and do something against him. That final scene where Zelda uses her power to stun him and let Link do his ultra combo is pure gold. And the ending does grant you the emotional payoff that has been building for the last hour, separating everything from each other. Even Navi, that pesky fairy tutorial companion, shrieking and yelling at Link at all different stages of his life, seeing her fly off and never to return tugs at the heartstrings a bit. And what is there to say about the reunion between Link and Zelda as he reclaims his lost time? The ending hours are simply the best and exude the most concentrated gameplay and emotion that have ever graced a Zelda game. If you haven't played this game for a few years, please do yourself a favor and relive it. I'm certain the poorly aged graphics and clunky movement will fade completely into the background once you hear that ocarina.
Well, did that hit you with some nostalgia vibes? I get it. It did for me too. This game has many moments that just are amazing, unaffected by the passage of time. And speaking of those moments, make sure you do hold on to them, because I'm about to attack some of this game's misses that is going to bring you back to a reality that your subconscious have been trying to block out for decades. I know. I just finished heaping praise on Hyrule's real estate, but now I am flip-flopping on that faster than Mayor Quimby in a Springfield election. This was a total downer.
There's almost nothing to keep you entertained as you run around from one place to the next. If you consider the short cycle for days in this game, you can go weeks running around without anything significant happening. Especially in the daytime. It's literally just like a little stroll at your neighborhood park. I mean, isn't this the wild, untamed land of Hyrule? Aren't there supposed to be feral animals lurking about? Or bandits? The most exciting thing you can do is maybe blow up a rock, go down a hole, and find a cow? And this situation repeats many times throughout Hyrule Field. What's the point? Is Link's ultimate goal to become a dairy farmer and reduce his rupee expenses due to the acquisition of free milk?
One hope I did have was that maybe, as Child Link, Hyrule Field was supposed to be a nice peaceful land that was free from many big huge dangers. Maybe this idealized Hyrule Field was supposed to serve as a huge contrast to when you become an adult and you have to make that same trek against unknown horrors as you try to struggle with the fate that has befallen the field.
So, I get to the Temple of Time, and my theory is encouraging at the start. Sure enough, the world has fallen into ruin. The town is dilapidated. There's fiery clouds circulating over Death Mountain. The castle town itself is filled with horrifying zombies. And I'm serious, like the first time you hear that high-pitched scream, and then realize your controller does nothing as the zombie slowly advances on you before proceeding to suck your blood. That's damn scary for a lighthearted Nintendo series. Anyway, this made me think, oh yeah, there's some serious mayhem just outside the castle walls. So I finally get outside and... it's pretty much exactly the same. It looks a bit darker around the castle, which then lightens up once you move 20 feet away from it. There's no signs of woe or destruction, no corpses of soldiers, no decaying animal carcasses, no scorched marks from spells or catapult rocks. There's that same ranch in the distance. All is well. And still, nothing to fight. It's just amazing. So many square acres of unspoiled, untarnished, and uninteresting landscape. Might as well just huck up my pants, tap my shoes, and play my ocarina for fun. The only thing that's different are the Poe ghosts. And they're just cowardly pricks who disappear on you anyway. I can't think of anything that's so grand and spectacular, yet absolutely boring when it comes down to it.
So, I'm asking you, gamers, if you were strapped with a shield on your back, and possibly a sword too if you were traveling unarmed, what do you think would be the most efficient, practical way of movement? What would be the most efficient way to get from point A to point B? A standard jog? Or maybe somersaulting as you go? That's a popular one. Nope, you failed. Well, I'll show you. It's this.
Maybe that made you laugh, but it's what happens in this renowned game. If you want to make the most of your daylight hours, which in Zelda time is apparently 2 minutes, you gotta haul ass! You've gotta master the legendary technique of hopping backwards! I'm not kidding! At the start of the game, the only way to get into Hyrule Castletown before the sun sets and the castle gate closes up is to run backwards like a lunatic! I'll prove it!
Who would ever do that? It would seem to defy the laws of physics. Swords and shields are not light. That's dozens of pounds of steel and iron. And this is a prepubescent kid we're talking about. He doesn't even have any muscle tone. Look at him. He shouldn't even be able to move.
Even as an adult, making subtle hops backwards would constantly bring that weight with you, making it very difficult to stay upright, especially with the Hylian shield. I mean, he can't even use it as a normal shield as is when he's a kid, so it's even more unbelievable. And if there's any variation to the terrain, with hills, or slopes, or inclines, and declines, you'd be royally screwed. In fact, it would probably look like this. You'd look like a damn turtle that got flipped over. Locals would stop and stare at you with bewilderment. In fact, the horse isn't even much faster than this bizarre clod-hopping backpedal. Let's time it. We'll set a standard distance and goal, and we will time this, both with young Link, adult Link, and adult Link with the horse. Ready? Go! Yeah, the horse is faster, but not by a lot. And you have to play Epona's song to summon the horse too, and that's not even factored into this. It's so fast, you can even use it to hack the game! Yeah, look at the eruption on Death Mountain. Remember having to go spend 80 rupees on a shield just so you can turtle like a puny urchin as hell rains down on you? Just kick it into high gear and stutter step your studly stalwart self to success! Haul ass backwards and nothing will hit you!
This is a handy, time-saving mechanic, but that doesn't diminish its stupidity.
So, over the course of the game, you can find these hidden great fairy fountains that imbue Link with some special magical spells. And you would think that, given that these are not guaranteed spells that are easy to find, and with how much magic power it uses, that the payoff would definitely be worth the trouble, right? Wrong! If you haven't experienced the futility of Din's Fire yet, be prepared to be disappointed. Well, here it is. It looks cool, right? Well, the truth is this.
It is the weakest, most pathetic attack in the entire game.
Ah, look at me. I'm surrounded by likes. A simple mob enemy, but I need protection. Take this! What the hell? It didn't even flinch? It didn't even get nudged backwards? I ended up in a worse position than before I even used it. And it took most of my magic energy. This is a travesty. You can literally poke something with a stick and it'll do more damage than this hemisphere of flimsy fire. I'll prove it to you. When you use it, it's supposed to seem epic. It's a rendered cutscene basically, and it looks pretty spectacular for the time. Link sells it the best he can with an awesome pose and a huge grunt and a heroic plunge into the ground. But then you see the results and it's like, whoa, that is so underwhelming. It doesn't even make some enemies blink. They just alight maybe and keep going. It's bad enough that it doesn't even work on some normal enemies. But what if you were overwhelmed against the well-equipped skeleton soldiers? What if your limbs gave out from repeatedly striking Astolfo's shield and this was your last resort? Want to know how that plays out? Here's how it plays out. Like, imagine if that happened in real life. You'd be so dead.
Get back, vile fiend!
Oh god, here we go. Here I am stumbling around the fire temple with Din's fire equipped because I guess I'm a dumbass sometimes. Oh damn it, I hit the wrong button and... Oh crap, here it goes. I'm gonna be a sitting duck for this fire slug to kill me.
What? That worked? That makes even less sense than before. It's made of fire! How does that hurt it?
It can't attack any actual enemy that you might need it to work on, but against this slow, pathetic, cowardly fire enemy, it extinguishes it! As far as my knowledge goes, there's only 2 5-second portions in the entire game where this spell is actually useful. In the Shadow Temple dungeon, you end up in a trap room with 2 wooden spike walls closing in on you. Din's fire can attack it effectively from both sides, saving your hide in a timely manner. It's kind of lame that the fire arrows you have don't do jack against this wooden wall. It's like this particular wood only ignites when certain fire is applied to it. It's fire! Fire is fire! What's the difference? And this is late in the game, so I'm thinking the developers noticed how useless Din's fire was up to this point, and were like, oh crap, we made this spell too pathetic. What can we do to solve this? Anyone? Any ideas? We can put this random trap in there that kills you unless you got like the fire spell. But what about the fire arrows? The wood. It's like a special wood. Yeah, that's it. For God's sake! And you know what the other use of this is? To enter the exact same temple. You have all these torches that you can't possibly light at the same time, so you have to stand on this little pillar, pull out the spell, just to give it one moment in the sun. Ironically, which is underground. But anyway, both required uses of the spell are in one single dungeon of the entire game. That can't be a coincidence. I would honestly rather just use fire arrows. It would be a lot more fun to have to pick the angles apart and do it, but it doesn't work because the torch is extinguished if you take too long. Speaking of the fire arrows, they are by far a more effective flame attack anyway. They use 1/3 of the magic power, travel fast and accurately, and they actually hurt things. So there's even less use of such a spell when you've got tons of arrows lit with fire to help whenever you need something hot. Oh, and look at this amazing use of the spell. Near the start of the game, you can go into this graveyard and find a hidden room with 2 torches that can't be lit with anything other than Din's fire, since you can't use the bow at this point. So you're pumped, and you scramble up there, use a spell, and... 5 bombs? 5 bombs. That's your reward? I could literally slash a random shrub pile and get 10 bombs, and I wouldn't have to hold them up in the air trying to convince myself that it was all worth it. Oh my God. Especially compared to the other awesome powers you can get, its patheticness comes to the forefront even more. Furore's Wind gets a lot of flack, but it can be really useful, letting you set a warp point in a huge dungeon where you know you're gonna come back to, and saving you tons of time. Nayru's Love is one of the best invincibility spells in all of gaming history. You can still attack while you're in it, nothing can hurt you, and it actually lasts for a full minute.
Din's Fire is like Waluigi, whereas Furore's Wind would be comparable to Luigi, and both of them are utterly dominated by Nayru's Love, which would be like Mario. Is that a clear enough comparison? Because I just don't know how else to explain this!
I'm nerding myself out of context now, but you know Smash Brothers? You know Din's Fire, Zelda's special move? When it debuted, and still today, it's considered one of the worst projectiles in the entire Smash series. A series which has upwards of 100 different characters at this point with that many different projectiles, and it's still considered the worst. It's laggy, leaves her helpless in most of the games, and doesn't have enough power to kill anything. Wonder why?
Enough said. I can pretty much just end the video now, right? Everyone's like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. I thought this was supposed to be a wise introspection.
This requires no introspection. Just look at it.
But as I've said in other videos, I am older than you, and there is such a huge portion of the gaming population that has no idea how terrible the original water dungeon was. Why am I saying original? Because I'm betting most of you played through this, but on the 3DS remake. That's not comparable. It's an entirely different dungeon, and the reason why it's completely modified is because the original is such a piece of crap!
And for those of you around my age, I bet you've forgotten just how pathetically designed this claptrap is. Believe me, be thankful. Or maybe you're lucky enough to not have ever encountered it. Maybe the most you've ever heard about it is just in passing, or you've read some random article on it. In that case, you are not prepared.
If I sat you in front of a TV and asked you to complete this dungeon before getting any more food or water, you'd be reduced to a withering, groveling mess of desperation because you would just lose patience and have no idea what the hell you're supposed to do!
The first annoying thing upon entering the labyrinth is just how much of a pain it's gonna be to switch your iron boots on and off. And I'm talking the original, old school N64 version. With the DS, you can just quickly tap your boots on and off. But here, you need to pause the game, flip to the equipment screen, put your boots on, unpause, and finally descend down into the depths of the water. Slowly. So slowly. But you don't have any goddamn idea where you're going when you do this. You'll go down to the lowest floor and find a locked door or a place you can't otherwise get to. So what do? Press pause, flip to your equipment screen, take your boots off, and float all the way up again. The first hour is just floating up and down for eternity. There's no guidance whatsoever, and the entire temple looks the same, both in its color scheme and its structure. It's a tall pillar with tons of sealed doors that's flooded. How boring can you make things? This boring. The combat and enemies also suck ass. What the hell are these things? Mutated pearls that grew spikes? Clamshells that just kind of hang out, but then somehow leap at you? When you go underwater, it gets even worse. You're frantically using your slow-ass hookshot to try and kill things, and the sluggishness of movement gets even more annoying, because the clamshells can only be struck when they're about to attack you, while the stupid spike ball things have to be attacked when they retract their spikes. It's not fun. You roll in terrible, elongated rolling maneuvers that just look so stiff and out of place, leaving you very vulnerable. And the hookshot weapon is all you can use. It comes out so slowly, it's almost like waiting for the Houston Astros to admit they cheated on baseball. Bet you didn't expect me to say that, but that's how frustrating this crap is. Speaking of the hookshot, it frustrates you to no end. You find all these paths you could potentially take, but no matter what you do, the chain isn't long enough. You try and try to make it work, but it just doesn't. Some of the worst parts in the water temple occur when you realize you need to change the water level again. The game has you playing your ocarina for the 1700th time at these Zelda song pedestals, which gets so tedious and repetitive that your fingers just frantically jam on the notes, wanting you to make it go faster, but that just makes you screw up over and over, making you even angrier and taking even longer. It all comes to a head in this room, the bane of many Zelda players' existence. In this precise cutscene that appears when you make the water rise in the central tower. This is so important, but if you blink, you miss it due to a bewildering choice in the camera setup. When you make the water level rise, you unveil a new place to go.
Did you see that? You need me to replay it for you, don't you? I don't blame you. I wish they would have given me 5 replays of this little cutscene when I was a kid.
It's barely shown during the scene, and there's nothing that draws attention to the fact that you can now go down into this area. Because it's not even close to being obvious. See that? That's where you have to go. It may look obvious when I freeze frame it and zoom in to show you it, but go watch it in full speed again and you'll get my frustration. And this is absolutely necessary to complete the dungeon because it has a small key inside and you can't get through the dungeon without it. I remember being 12 years old, missing this scene, scrounging around and floating so slowly up and down the water, searching for a different key that never existed, throwing a tantrum like a 3-year-old, and restarting the entire game. No joke. Thinking I had to have missed something in a previous level or screwed up the temple so bad that it was too far gone.
This is just unacceptable. How is a kid with no internet or a strategy guide supposed to beat this?
And when you do find this out, you're treated to a godforsaken slow motion combat match against both of those annoying enemies I was talking about. It's so boring and slow. Even finding the key does little to make the ordeal feel worth it. I mean, look at Link. He'll tell you exactly how I feel about this temple. Exactly. The ordeals just don't stop. You think you're finally making progress. You see the floor is littered with spikes and use your hookshot to launch over them. And then you fall into this abomination that steals all of your essential items like the Zora tunic. Why? What pisses me off the most is that the coolest mini-boss in the entire game awaits you when you finally get near the end of this dungeon. A doppelganger Dark Link, who many fans associate with the final boss in Zelda 2, Adventure of Link. This is such a random fight with no suspense or build-up, but it's so badass. I just wish it was reserved for the final hours, like right before the endgame boss. That would be a much better place, instead of an absolutely random fight in the middle of the most brutal slog of a dungeon. Oh, fun fact, this may be the only other useful way to use Din's Fire.
It finally found a use in combat. Hooray.
For the other 40 plus hours, it's an absolute waste of space. But for these 40 seconds, you'll be singing this thing's praises. Bet you thought I forgot or didn't know about this, given how much I crapped on it, but I'll give credit when it's due.
But that's the thing. It's like this one fight tries to rectify the patheticness of Din's Fire and make up for the awfulness of this whole dungeon in this one kick-ass boss battle. It's like, hey, we really screwed you over, so here's Dark Link. Yeah, I'm not buying it. and I don't forgive it.
So, you beat Dark Link, you get the long shot, and now you think everything's gonna be easy. You're so pumped, all those places that you couldn't have access to have no hold on you anymore. So you jump down the hole, ready to race through the temple, and then, God damn it! Really? Water vortexes? With the first one that's placed in the exact spot you'll end up in if you show any enthusiasm? Take a gander at how tedious this is. You try to walk on the floor with your iron boots, but you slide down the rocky terrain. You swim like a bastard to get away from the suction, but it keeps pulling you in. But not so quick that it puts you out of your misery. It makes you think you have a chance, until finally you just get sucked in and die. The temple just gets worse and worse the more you get into it. One of the final rooms is this square pool of vortexes, enemies, boulders, just frustration. It compiles every single thing that's already pissed you off and puts it all in one room just for your growing insanity. Damn it. What the hell?
Almost made it. Just gotta get up to this door and... Oh, damn it! Why do they keep... Oh, now I jumped the wrong way! Oh, I should probably just go to the door, but these things piss me off so much, I just want to get them out of my face. No! Oh no, now look. Oh, up that boulder, get out! Oh!
Just how much more can a gamer take? And to top it off, one more cryptic hallway that almost no one would guess to find, leading you to another locked door. Thank God I have the key this time, and you're almost done.
To end the dungeon, you get this.
A slanted floor that Link has to run full tilt against just to make progress, but it's barred by 3 sliding spike things. By this point, you're throwing your controller, you're cursing worse than a drunken sailor, and that makes it even more difficult to find the wherewithal to force yourself to find the exact timing you need to make it up here.
I'm gonna make it. Come on. Yeah, gotta. Oh no. Oh, this time I'll make it. Yes. No, damn it. No, stop it. No, God.
I might as well look like the ultimate idiot and do the backward speed run up this slope. Oh my God. That did not happen. You mercifully get into the final boss room, and you're already disappointed because Dark Link was the most kick-ass thing that could have ever happened, so you know it's gonna be worse, and my God, is it ever worse. It's a nondescript, weird cellular organism thing that somehow controls the water? I don't know. You spend an hour falling into spikes, waiting 30 seconds for the water thing to ensnare you and throw you, watching helplessly as your hearts get drained, and then you find yourself clanging your hookshot against the stone pillars in a vain attempt to get this damn whatever it is out of the water so you can flail at it like a crazy person. See, targeting doesn't even work because the thing moves too fast that your hookshot just hits the stone pillars. It's the worst boss fight in the entire game. But, I mean, at least you're not surprised by this point. I mean, at least they put all the major flaws in this game in one horrific place.
What kind of masochist bastard designed this temple? Every single task in this underwater abhorrence is an arduous, drawn-out chore! Imagine if you had to buy house insurance, clean out your pet's litter boxes, file your income taxes, and buy Christmas presents for your entire family, all in one day. That's the comparison I probably should have led with, because there is nothing fun about this dungeon.
The movement, the combat, the level design, it's all so tedious, drawn out, and littered with so many cryptic, unintelligible puzzles and keys that it makes you just want to never play the game again. And it's not just me. The producer himself, E.G. Aonuma, apologized for this dungeon, and subsequently, the 3DS re-release showed much clearer waypoints, shut off areas that you shouldn't go until you're ready, and even removed most of the enemies. When the actual designers go on record and say this crap about their own game, you know that things just didn't go the way they should have. As we get older and wiser, we're able to more accurately assess the things which we at first found no fault in whatsoever. And while it's true that Ocarina of Time has some flaws, some being humorous and innocent, others that make us wonder how we let it slide as kids, these missteps aren't what we remember the most. We remember the scale, the heroism, and the new 3D approach to what was already a legendary gaming franchise. Part of gaming's greatness is its nostalgia, to remind us of how awesome we felt playing a new hit for the first time. And I hope all of us continue to retain some of that childlike innocence so we can always reflect warmly on classics like this.
Here at Gaming Introspection, I hope you enjoyed revisiting a timeless adventure, and maybe it'll help rekindle your love for some classic games. I genuinely wish you all the best, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. It'll come faster than you think. I promise.
Hey, listen! Look! Hey! Watch out! Listen! Hey! Hey! Watch out! Hey! Listen! Watch out! Look! Watch out! Look! Hey! Hey! Listen! Watch out! Hey! Hey! Look! Hey! Listen! Listen! Look! Watch out! Watch out!